It's a great day for America, everybody. Yes, it is. And normally when I say that, the audience goes nuts. It's almost like nobody told you. Anyway, it is a great day for America. Welcome to the show tonight. Today is, of course, the first day of Black History Month. Now, I wanna talk about that tonight. And now I know what you're thinking, Craig. You're not black, and I'm like, no, that's right, I'm not. So, if you've noticed, the lighting must be getting better in this studio. I am not black, of course, but I am an American. So I think it's kind of important, you know, because people say, Craig, you can't do a show about Black History Month. What do you know about Black history? And I'm like, nothing. That's why I have to do a show about Black history. See, a few years ago, I became a citizen of this country. It was a very proud and patriotic moment for me, and I'm still proud and patriotic. I'm very happy to be an American. I'm even starting American. I'm starting to say it like that. No, I am very happy to be an American. However, in an attempt to know my country better and be a better American, you know, I studied our nation's history a little bit. Not as much as you guys. You did it in school. I just did a little bit. But of course, as I read a little bit about our nation's history, you know, I realize it's not all flags and singing. Now, Dr. Cornel West wrote, and I quote, "Black people have never had the luxury to believe in the innocence of America. Although we've experienced the worst of America, we still believe that the best of America can emerge." Now, how could I, as an American, not want the best of America to emerge? So tonight, there will be no robot. There will be... Shut up! There will be no robot, there will be no dancing horse, they will be back later. No, listen. I do the robot and the dancing horse nearly every night. If I did the same thing every night, if I didn't... See, this is kind of like my little sandbox, this show. One of the advantages of being on a show that the network doesn't know is actually broadcast is you can do what you want. And every now and again, I do whatever the hell I want. Today, I'm doing a show about the history of the black people in America. Now, because also in the course of my studies, when I was talking about, well, my studies, I mean, when I was reading, you know, and I was thinking, you know, there seems to be a glaring omission in all the stuff I've been reading about. There is one large group of Americans whose ancestors did not come here by choice. And I'm like, right. Probably should learn about that then too. So, there'll be no dancing horse, no skeleton, it'll all be back tomorrow. But we will have tonight, I hope, an honest discussion with an eminent and respected black American, an academic, a very clever gentleman, maybe the smartest person we've ever booked. Which, I have to say, intimidates me a little bit. It's all right. That's part of it. Actually, you know what? That's part of being a middle-aged white guy talking about race in America. I'm like, ugh. Yeah, immediately I start to feel guilty. Why, I wonder? Anyway, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with the brilliant Dr. Doctor Who? No, that was a different show. Now, we'll be right back with Dr. Cornel West. All right.
The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, sponsored by Expedia. More ways to save and more hotel options. Expedia, where you book matters. Ferguson.
All right, everybody, thanks. Thanks very much. It's a great day for America, everyone. Thank you. That's right. Now, you will be, it is a great day, and I'll tell you why. You'll be very relieved that I am not about to do a monologue about the black experience in America. You're welcome, every black person in America. Now, I'm just going to talk to my guest tonight, who is a scholar and author. He's known for books such as Race Matters and Hope on a Tightrope. Please welcome the brilliant Dr. Cornel West, everybody.
Blessing
Dr.
to be
West.
here.
It's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming.
So kind of happy, though, brother.
Well, listen, I want to talk to you about Black History Month. I don't know if anyone told you that. They might have said you were here for something else, but that's what it is.
That sounds good to me.
All right, then. Why is it important, then? Tell me why Black History Month is important.
Well, one is that, you see, black history forces all of us, no matter what color, culture, or civilization, it goes beyond even America, to raise a terrifying question. What does it mean to be human?
Oh.
That is a terrifying question.
All right, what does it mean to be human, then?
Well, I've been working on it, I tell you.
Okay,
I've been wrestling with it, yeah. I start with line 38A of Plato's Apology, where Socrates says, the unexamined life is not worth living. It's not a life for the human. You know, our English word human derives from the Latin humando, which means burying. That's where the word humanity and humility come from.
Right.
Tied to the earth.
Right, okay.
To the soil, as it were. And this issue of what does it mean to be a featherless, two-legged, linguistically conscious creature born between urine and feces.
Hello.
That's who we are. That's who you are?
Yeah,
That's who?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not quite Church of Scotland, but I understand where you go.
We down in the funk, right? We down in the funk, brother.
Right.
Black history forces us to say, what kind of human being are we going to be in America, in the New World, or anywhere else?
Now, listen, forgive me, there's probably a lot that I'm not going to know because I wasn't brought up in, in the American school system, and I wasn't taught a lot of American history, so what is the difference between black and African American? Is there a difference? Is there an actual reason that the phrase is...
Well, one, you've got phenotypes. So, for example, there's a number of black people, beautiful, wonderful, lovely, who come from Africa as voluntary immigrants in the last 30 years with the change in the 1965 Immigration Act.
Okay.
As a result of the Black Freedom Movement, Martin King and others.
So everything I said at the beginning of the show is wrong, then?
No, it's because you've got some voluntary immigrants who are African Americans.
Right.
You've got some wonderful brothers and sisters from the Caribbean.
Right.
But then you've got ex-Negroes.
Right.
You see what I mean? Now, ex-Negro is someone who calls him or herself Black American or African American, but what that means is, back to the question of dealing with the funk in American history, they come out of slavery.
Right.
244 years of being terrorized, traumatized, stigmatized, their babies being sold, themselves commodities to be sold, and many of their cousins resting at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean because of the millions who died given the 52,400 voyages from Africa to the New World.
Right.
From the 15th century to the 19th century, 400 years.
Right.
So that ex-Negroes are those who have been enslaved in the New World, and as you know, for almost 80 years, were enslaved under the U.S. Constitution. And this is something we always want to remind our right-wing brothers and sisters who we love and respect, but just often are wrong about a lot of things.
Okay.
Because when they talk about the U.S. Constitution, we know it is a historic document. It's a monumental document.
Right.
But for almost 80 years, in practice, it was a pro-slavery document.
Right, but
if it were not for Americans of all colors to fight and break the back of American slavery, we wouldn't have that amendment that called into question the institution of slavery. Now, there's no reference to the institution of slavery in the U.S. Constitution. Exactly. Now, that's that innocence you were talking about.
Right. So, the idea that I had this idea that all of the founding fathers were slave owners. That's not true, right?
No, not all of them. Most of them, but not all of them.
All right, like John Adams, he was an abolitionist.
John Adams and John Quincy Adams.
And John Quincy
Adams family itself.
Right.
Magnificent.
And then they made the TV series later, which was a completely different. And where they got the history completely wrong about the Adams.
So you want to keep track of those great freedom fighters like John Quincy Adams and others. But as you know, if it were not for the 180,000 black people who joined the Union Army to conquer the Confederate Army, we wouldn't even have the Union.
Now, but if we have the very existence of Black History Month, you know, however well-intentioned, is it possible by saying black people are separated in history by the other 11 months of the year? Does it not, however well-intentioned, compound the idea of separateness and compound the idea of apartness?
Yes, a very wonderful question. The great Carter G. Woodson, one of the Harvard PhD scholars who actually came up with this idea, he was raising the issue at that time because so much of black doings and sufferings had been rendered invisible.
Right.
Nobody
the rewriting of history.
Exactly. Nobody wanted to come to terms with it.
That's not just an American thing.
Oh, that's a human thing.
Yeah, right.
Scottish history.
Oh, yeah.
The Highlanders, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The rebellious Highlanders and the sophisticated cosmopolitan.
You bring up an interesting point, particularly when you say Scottish history, because whenever, you know, there's a lot of things that I feel, you know, are, you know, you don't want to accept in your own history. And whenever I meet a black man in America whose last name is Ferguson, I'm like, where'd I go with this? Because, you know, it's not because he's from the same town as me. You know, it's, I mean.
But the wonderful thing about being human is that all of us can make certain kinds of decisions. We have our choices, no matter who our parents are, no matter who our grandparents are. And we can love our grandparents even when they make ugly choices, because there's some other good things about them. But we can make choices that don't imitate them at their worst. We build on them at their absolutely. So when you see a black brother or sister named Ferguson, you just say, I'm going to make some different kind of choices. And it's a beautiful name that you have. And, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I would be interested in that kind of choice. But the idea, though, that, you know, a lot of people. And I think I'm one of these people too. In your life, when you talked earlier on about the unexamined life not worth living, it's also the same about personal and societal history.
Absolutely.
So when I encounter things in a country which I love, and I do love this country, when I encounter things which, you're right, are ugly in our history, and all countries that I can see have ugliness. All people, I think, have some
human
ugliness.
History is a cycle of domination and oppression and bigotry and revenge and resentment and hatred.
So
we want to break the chain.
How do you do it? Through love? Is that the idea?
Well, I think courage is the enabling virtue that you try to then have the courage to think critically for yourself. You have the courage to love others, beginning with yourself. Your love begins at home. You got to begin with loving yourself, your mother, your father. That's a Scottish love. Yeah. But you have spillover love.
Right.
So it spills over from the Scots to black folk, brown, red, yellow, and so forth. I begin with Negroes and ex-Negroes. Right. Mom, dad, and so forth. They love me. I've loved them. You are who you are because somebody loved you. I am who I am because somebody loved me. But I have to have the courage for the love to spill over. Right. So from Chocolate City, it gets to Vanilla Suburb. See what I mean? It gets to Red Reservation. It gets to Yellow. It gets to Brown Barrio and so forth. So in that sense, we're back to Hermando again, our human commonality, even given the history which we have to come to terms. But it's courage. The problem right now is we don't have enough courage. Because you see, all the fears and anxieties that we have, the difficulty of building bridges, it reinforces a certain kind of cowardice. And we know hatred itself, at its worst, is nothing but a form of cowardice.
Yeah, but how do I mean? It's approached the idea of history, right? The idea of looking at the ugliness of the past. What about when you have the idea? You know, when Orwell wrote, "He who controls the past controls the present." Oh, yes. Right. So when you look at the idea of take the Huckleberry Finn, you know, when the rewriting, the taking of the I can't even say the word. I don't think it's
the N word itself. Right.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not crazy about that.
Right. I can understand that.
I know what you mean.
So the taking of that word out of the book and putting in another word which was more acceptable to a liberal white reader now, is that the right thing to do?
No, that's an attempt to deodorize the funk of the text.
Right.
You can't. can't do that.
Right.
He uses the N-word 219 times. Now, we know that Samuel Clemens Mark Twain, he's a literary genius. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
He began his life as a racist Confederate soldier. He grew, he matured, he became one of the major anti-racist, anti-imperialist, his defense of our Filipino brothers and sisters with U.S. Army occupation there in the 1890s. So that Mark Twain, his genius, his literary genius, has to be manifest in the way that he put it forward.
Right.
We just need,
he knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. We just need superb teachers to say, look, this is the context, 1887. Now, this is Jim Crow, and Jane Crow already beginning to emerge.
Right.
After slavery, we had this wonderful experience of multiracial democracy called the Reconstruction. We had more black senators in the 1870s than we do today. Isn't that something? We got 0 black senators. I know we got Brother Barack in the White House, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. But the Senate looks like the National Hockey League. You know what I mean?
We got to take a break. We'll be right back with Dr. Cornel West. With Dr. Cornel West about, what are we talking about? I guess we're talking about black history.
We're talking about being human in black skin, white skin, red skin, yellow skin, and knowing that one day all of us will be the culinary delight of terrestrial worms. That's funky too.
Yeah, boy, that's kind of a depressing end of the story, though, isn't it? I mean, let me ask you about.
It's just so nice to pass through, you know.
It is on occasion.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there are disappointing bits, you know.
But there's no disappointments without the joys, no joys without the sorrows. Because this is another thing about black history.
All right.
We are blues people.
Blues people.
Blues people.
See, if I did that would look stupid. If I did,
and keep in mind, the blues is not confined to skin color.
Right.
Not at all.
What is it then?
The blues is an autobiographical chronicle of a personal catastrophe expressed lyrically.
That's all the blues is?
Well, that's the start. That is the start. Ralph Ellison. So that when B.B. King says, nobody loves me but my mom and she might be jiving too.
Yeah.
That's the blues. But when
I would say that was clinical paranoia.
Well, no. So, you know, Antigone, Sophocles' Antigone.
Right.
That's the blues now. You're alive in the tomb, darkness everywhere. Or Strange Fruit, the Southern Trees Bear that Billie Holiday sang about, and the Jewish brother Maripol wrote the lyrics. Now, that was about what? Lynching.
Oh.
That was American terrorism. They call it Jim and Jane Crow. We use little words like segregation, but we know it was more. For every 2.5 days, for almost 45 years, there was a black man, a woman, a child swinging from some tree. That's the strange fruit that Southern trees bear in the United States. Now, that precisely is, again, this underside of American history. Well, that was from 1880 up to 1965. That's when Martin King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Stokely Carmichael and Curtis Mayfield and Bernice Reagan and others were fighting. And then, of course, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel and Philip Barrigan and Dorothy Day coming together to break the back of Jim and Jane Crow.
Well, how do we move then? How do we break the chain? How do you
that courage. We need more courage.
And
I
mean, the mere idea of bringing up the subject of racism, it seems. I mean, I know, by the simple nature of the discussion we're having now, is going to annoy some people, right? And the idea of talking about it, are all racisms equal? Is black white? Is there a socio-economic angle to this? The white people, the poor white people hate rich black people? Does it, or is it just strictly, heritage and skin color?
Well, I mean, first, for me, just as a human being and as a Christian, any ideology or perspective that dehumanizes anybody is wrong, no matter what.
Well, you're talking about fundamentalism.
Just a moral fundamentalism in terms of any hatred of black, white, red, yellow, gay, lesbian, rich, poor, whatever, is wrong. Now, historically, there are certain institutions and structures. So, for example, black supremacy is as evil as white supremacy. But when you look at America, you don't see a history of black supremacy institutionalized by blacks enslaving whites or blacks Jim Crowing whites. The wonderful thing about black history, and again, this is why it's so very important for all of us to understand, is that in the face of the terrorism of slavery, we get Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, who says what? We don't want to enslave white brothers and sisters. We want freedom for everybody. Same is true with Jim Crow.
Well, what about when Desmond Tutu was here and we were talking about...
what a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy, isn't he?
Yeah,
now, when he was here, he was talking about the Truth and Reconciliation and the movement within South Africa, and he felt on a personal level as well about the idea of the resentment, whether it was an individual's or a society's, was poisonous to that individual or to that group. That was it. It was like we talked about it being drinking poison and then expecting someone else to die. That it was a destructive thing. How do you as a black man free yourself from the resentment of the history of the black people in America?
Well,
and not just you, but how would one, if I were a black man, what would you say to me?
I think we all should begin with ourselves. I begin with myself.
Right.
I look inside of myself and I see white supremacy inside of me because I've been shaped by what I've been exposed to in America from 1953 to now.
Then, given that I agree with you, and given that conceptually we're talking about the way out is courage and the way out is love.
Tell the truth, organize, mobilize, put poor people, put working people at the center. This is the best of black history. Black history is what Sly Stone calls everyday people. He, like the genius George Clinton, the genius Bootsy Collins, the genius James Brown. You get everyday people's genius and talent manifest. So black history is about the power of everyday people to get us to think critically against the grain. Now that hurts. The exam of life is painful. You got to cut against the grain.
No, if you look at, that's why I'm interested, because I was a blackout drunk for 15 years, right? And there's a point. Thanks, friend. Now, the reason that I managed to end a behavior which I found abhorrent in myself was because I looked very closely.
Self-examination.
Right.
Yes.
But I was forced into that. I was forced into that.
Forced by what?
Well, I was forced by the circumstances. You know, you wake up and you know, in situations that involve your own urine, or you hope it's your own urine. You know, where you continue to do to go against what would be your judgment otherwise, right? Where you're in saner thought, you wouldn't do that. A behavior that was abhorrent to me, and I think I'm not saying this is why it happened, but a little bit of my upbringing was being drunk. There was no shame in being drunk. You know, so it kind of helped a little bit for me to destroy myself that way. I wonder if you look at the way we treat our youth, black and white.
Yes, right? And red and brown.
All colors of youth, right?
That's right.
If we look at our youth and we say, the best you can do is wear a lot of gaudy jewelry and you know, be promiscuous with each other, and you know, wear your pants at your knees. This is what the best you can aspire to is financial wealth and sexual availability. Is it perhaps a problem in the teaching from the very beginning that we teach, and that crosses all socioeconomic boundaries?
That's a powerful point. I mean, I think that there is a parallel between addiction to alcohol, addiction to drugs, addiction to sexual activity, and an addiction to white supremacy, an addiction to
I'm not saying
and what that means, you have to break it by means of both a courage, but also a love, a certain kind of awareness that intervenes when you think there's something of value much more than the thing you are addicted to.
Right.
And I think one of the ways you go about doing that, though, is you have to have examples. This is why Martin King and the others are so very important. People have to have examples to see, because what you're talking about with our precious young people of all colors is a form of spiritual malnutrition.
I think so.
That they are addicted to stimulation, titillation, consumption, and their conception of being
any of these things, by the way.
It has to be put in context. It has to be put in context.
That's exactly.
Right. I mean, when it becomes like a golden calf or an idolatry, rather than put in context, we all want some stimulation.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of titillation is okay.
Not even a little more than a little bit, you know what I mean? But it has to be put in context. You see what I mean? I mean, I'm a strong...
I feel we're moving forward here. I really do.
I'm a strong Christian, but I have nothing against orgasm.
But
the thing is, but I don't want to live an orgiastic life.
Yes.
You see, I don't want to hook up with an orgasm machine and just have orgasms for the rest of my life. I want conversation. I want some breaks and things.
Right,
I want to be able to love. I want to be able to fight for justice and so forth.
Right.
That's what we need. But see, in our society, we get indifference toward poor people, indifference toward working people. In fact, as you know, even in our government, I mean, God, when the investment bankers are in trouble, they cry for help. They get billions of dollars. Poor people cry for help. Pull yourself up by your own bootstrap. Don't you know when you fail, you have to deal with the consequences? I say, what hypocrisy.
Yeah. No, you're right.
The priorities get warped in that regard. So our young people see this and they say, oh, this is not about integrity. This is not about dignity. This is about the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not get caught.
Yeah.
If I can get by this scandal, I do it. If I can get by this violation of a rule, I do it. That's not a good signal for our young people.
This is a very good point to stop for a commercial break. Please buy the products advertised. We'll be right back. This evening to Dr. Cornel West about, what were we talking about? Black history.
We're talking about what it means to be human and how we can be courageous to love, to think, to sacrifice, to serve, especially the least of these.
And you talked a little bit about an orgasm machine. You remember that?
Oh, that little connection. For me, one of the wonderful stories in American history is a relation between Abraham Lincoln and William H. Johnson. Abraham Lincoln had a black valet.
Right.
And he and the black valet went to Gettysburg all by themselves with his son. They both were sick. The valet, when he got back to D.C., he died. And Lincoln took money out of his own pocket, had a space in Arlington Cemetery, and had his own personal burial. William H. Johnson, citizen, 1864, before the war.
Before the end of the war, yeah.
Born a slave.
Yeah.
Now, what is that? Abe Lincoln, white brother who would support a colonization. Black people moving outside the United States. He didn't think that America could create a multiracial democracy for a good while. Right. He changed his mind. The greatness of Lincoln. Eric Foner and others have made this point.
Is that a true sign of greatness, being able to change your mind? That's courage, I think.
Courage when it's for the good. You don't want to change your mind like Thomas Watson, who began multiracial organizing among black and white farmers and ended up Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah,
we don't want that kind of change in mind, you know.
That's more kind of losing your mind.
But I mean, people can always bounce back, though. You always want to give people a second chance, though.
Let me talk a little bit about I don't think any discussion of the black people in America is really worth having without talking about music as well.
God, you're so right.
Because the music of this country, when I think of even when if I was a black man in the early 1950s and when Elvis came out, I'd have been like, what the hell is this? Because it sounds like a black man. That was the thing,
Elvis was a highly talented white brother who creatively appropriated black styles. He had his own little appropriation of it, but certainly vis-a-vis the black talented artist, he would have been about a B- on the dean's list, But
I look forward to your letters. Listen, you can say what you like about race, but you start trashing Elvis, they'll burn the studio down.
I'm not trashing the brother, but if Elvis came back from the dead and said, brother, can you dance like James Brown, Michael Jackson, Jackie Wilson? He said, what you talking about? No, not at all.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. But the brother, we know how great Elvis was. We're not putting him down, but keep this in mind. This is the history, though. For 244 years, the only thing black people had control over was their voices. We had no control over our bodies.
Right.
Exploited, our women violated and raped and so forth, right? All we had was our voices.
Right.
The anthem of black people, lift every voice.
Right.
What is democracy? Lifting every voice. In order to be a great jazz woman, a jazz man, you have to find your voice. In order to be a great blues man, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Tennessee Williams, Stephen Sondheim, B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf.
Right, I see
George
where you're going.
Clinton.
It's about voices then. Yeah, right. Okay.
Even Lil Wayne is a blues man with all of his tattoos and things. He's a talented blues man, but he's in the hip-hop context. But the blues, again, is about what will be your response to the catastrophic. All of us must deal with catastrophe one day.
Right.
The death of our mothers.
That's you're talking about human.
Back to the humano again. You have to come to terms with catastrophe. Same is true for a nation. Civil War, catastrophe. Depression, catastrophe. This very moment in America, catastrophe every day in our hoods.
Yeah.
In our poor white areas, in our poor brown areas. What do you do about catastrophe? You either ignore it or you attempt to transform it, just like B.B. King.
It's usually
smile on your face.
When I think about it, there was I mean, even when Nelson Mandela was in South Africa and was in prison in Robben Island, there was the first I ever heard his name mentioned was in a song by a group called the Specials, who were made up of white guys and black guys from a town called Birmingham in England. Yeah, and it's a song called Free Nelson Mandela. It was the first time I ever heard the man's name. You know, when I was, and it's usually, you're right, it's usually the musicians.
Well,
They're usually
because
first.
the musicians are courageous. They don't care what we think, our conventional moralities. They're going to speak from the depths of their soul, no matter what colors. You get those brilliant working class brothers from Liverpool,
yeah,
the Beatles, listening to Howlin' Wolf and listening to Muddy Waters and so forth. Here come the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Learning why? Because at that human level, the music affects your soul, it affects my soul, and even though we may have slightly different rhythms when we dance, I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about some other folks.
Man,
I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about some other folks. But even though we might have different rhythms, that human connection cannot be beat.
Let me tell you right now, I know I was raised in a Presbyterian church. I know I'm a middle-aged white man, but I tell you right now, sir, I can dance.
You can dance.
Yeah, I can dance.
He can dance. He can dance.
Whoa! We'll be right back with George Clinton, everybody. George Clinton.
For you to do something like this to educate with all the humor and humanity. Good job, man.
My next guest is one of the innovators of funk music. He's a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's here to perform the title track from the album One Nation Under a Groove. Please welcome the legend that is George Clinton and P-Funk, everybody.
Is this One Nation?
Welcome back, George Clinton. Well done, George. Thank you. Hey, listen. Dr. West, I've got a feeling, I don't know why I think this, George. It might be because you're wearing the hoodie and the necklaces and stuff, but I think you might know where the orgasm machine is that Dr. West was talking about.
I was listening at that. I said I want to speak to him when he got off the show. That's cheaper than the way I know how to get it.
No, there are places.
No, not a machine, no. Machines don't talk back.
Join us for tomorrow night's show when we'll be talking about the feminist movement in America. Listen, do you agree with what we were talking about earlier on about musicians being usually the first ones to raise their voices to against injustice against?
I'm glad too, because that's why we stay around so long. I wait for kids for parents to say they hate the kids' music, or for older musicians to say, I hate that music. That's the music I'm going to look for.
Right.
Because that's going to be the next music. Kids are supposed to get on your nerve.
Yeah, well, they do.
Kids are supposed to make you evolve.
Yeah.
That's right. They have a way of getting along without knowing any of the history of it. It's the best music in hip-hop that brought race relations closer than any other music I know.
Right.
You know, and so with that, we've tried a long time to get along. And it didn't work. Yeah. Black, brown, Negro, African American, you know what I'm saying? They get along with all of that.
This is because it's all hip hop, right?
It's all whatever they relationship, whatever they converting with each other is.
Yeah.
You know, it works for them.
Works for them. I don't understand a damn word they're talking about, but it works for them.
Because it do work.
No, for me.
It seems love is plentiful around the world with that. So again, I'm with kids because they've got the new thing.
Yeah. And
as long as it's working, I don't want to relate to them how it used to be bad, because words, hey, we got brains. Like you said, you can change your mind.
You can change your mind.
You can change your relation to words or pictures or anything else. You got a mind.
But one of the wonderful things about this brother, unadulterated genius that he is that his music is fresh all the time. Because when you have a classic, it's timeless, which means it's relevant for every time.
Right.
And even the younger generation, when they use the samples from this brother's music, we talked about James Brown and Sly Stone, Bootsy Collins and others, they got to go back to this genius because all of that courage, that freedom, and that love, and that funk is intertwined.
That true?
Is that right, though, brother?
I mean, that's where he put it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, I'd like to thank my guests, Dr. Cornel West, George Clinton, P-Funk,